Hi, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and today is Tuesday, March 20th, and this will serve as our chart lesson for today. And we had another pretty good trading day. It started off a little slow and it was a little sketchy because it was so choppy here. Um, I saw this strong resistance area across here as a good trading opportunity. But finally prices broke above it. We fell down one more time and then rocketed out of there. I wouldn't say we necessarily rocketed out, but we traded out of that back out of that range and continued up for most of the afternoon, pretty much until after 2:30, which is far too late in the day to be trading. And we just had a little channel here, and I actually drew my channel off of these highs first and then cloned that and brought it down, and that helped me kind of find where the reversal area was later in the day. And if you get these just right across there, I kind of used the closes is what I did and drew it right across that close and then these two highs and then cloned that and brought it down, or just drug it down. You can see it kind of matched up pretty good, and that led me to know that I was pretty much in the right place. And that turned out to be kind of the channel today. And you can see prices turned down off of that high each time and turned up off of those lows each time. But I didn't catch this until later in the day, so I was really trading this range early. So let's start there. Let me tell you what I saw. We were in this kind of a down sloping trend line from yesterday's prices. Even if you'd have waited till and used these first two, you still should have got something similar to this right across there. And I've shown that before, that you don't necessarily have to get your trend lines exactly right, but even if you had drawn it across there like so, you still would have gotten the same area, same general area. You would have been looking for something here. You might have drawn this a little steeper, and that might have been your first break, so that would have been okay too. But we were really holding prices all down through there from yesterday, so that's why I liked that trend line there. But let me show you this. This was the first short of the day, and this kind of serves as a breakout pullback short. We had this strong resistance area up here, and we made a lower high here and a lower high here. And so I was looking to short this back down here, maybe get a failed breakout. This went much further than I expected, and so that's why it's sometimes good to hold on to those runners, because you could have got another couple of points out of this more than what I expected. I really thought we would just break below this bottom, or maybe even not get below it, and then it would fail and we'd come back up, because we'd been away from this trend line for so long that I was definitely looking for a couple of legs back to this trend line. And so if you caught that first trade right after the open, that was a good short. And it's really a two-legged pullback. Let me show you. There's one leg back up, then a pullback, and then a second leg up, and then it turned down. And even though this has a little green bar, this is a nice long stem, and prices closed almost on the low. And you might have even had a red bar, a hanging type doji there or whatever, hanging, I forget exactly what they call that. The name of it's not really important. It's just what it is, that prices opened down here, tried to trade higher, and then closed back down here near the lows. And so going short right there was a good trade. That was a nice move right out of the gate this morning. Here was the next trade that I saw, and this was a trading range by the time prices opened today. By the time the regular market opened, we'd been in this range since about 4:30 in the morning, and we were still in it about the time the market opened. We broke lower, failed, and came back, and then as you see, prices got back inside that range and traded at the low of this. And the reason I like this long right here, let me show you. We had one leg up, and generally with a leg that bullish, you're likely, especially when the trend line's way up here, you're probably going to get a pullback and then another leg up to back to the trend line. So that's what I was looking to happen. And so when we got this double bottom at the low of this previous trading range, and it's really a failed second entry. Here's your first low, there's your pullback, there's your first entry short, then we pull back again. There's your second entry short. So that's a failed second entry short. It's a double bottom at the low of this trading range, and it's also following a nice little bullish leg back when we're still way away from the trend line that was up here. And so I was looking for another leg, and here's leg one, and then look, there's your leg two, and there are basically two perfectly measured legs. Again, there's leg one and there's leg two. Leg one, leg two. And so if you went long here, then the place to reverse was coming off that trend line. That's another bearish bar right at this strong. Even if you didn't have this trend line in there, you should be able to see that. Prices turned down there once, twice, three times. This is the fourth time, and that's a nice, we broke higher and turned and closed on the very low, so that's a great place to go short. And even though it was only good for a scalp or maybe a little more depending on how you traded it or handled your trade, it still was a fairly easy trade. And by that time you got three in the bag already, and things are looking pretty good. But if you had your trend line in place too, that gave you a second reason to be thinking short right there. And the only reason I didn't mark this long here, you could have gone long right here as well. I didn't mark this one because by the time it set up, if you had this trend line there and this resistance, there wasn't a whole lot of room back to the top. But the reason I liked it is look how high these lows are higher than these lows, and that's another double bottom, and it's also a second entry long. There's your new high, your pullback, your first entry long, pull back again, and then a second entry long. So that was a second entry long following a failed second entry short that made a higher low coming off this failed break lower and this double bottom right here at the EMA. So if you saw that, it was okay to go long there. I didn't mark it because there was a lot of overlap there. It was right at this trend line. It was still very close to this resistance area. And you can see prices, once they got there, they did pull back. But as long as you had your stop in a decent place, it still was a good trade. So, but that's why I didn't mark that one. If you saw it and you took it, that was okay as well. You really could have shorted either one of these, but again, prices are trending up at this time. Look, we've been making higher highs and higher lows for about an hour, so it was a little dangerous trading these. But by the time we tested this double top the third time, and if you draw your line up here, you'll see that that was pretty obvious that we probably were going to pull back. We hadn't had a correction for quite a while, and I was still assuming that we might have a retest of this downtrending line, but that's all we got out of it. And this was a second entry long, so if you saw this, and this is basically a breakout pullback second entry long, because that was the breakout pullback from that area right in there, and or you could have called it right there as well. But anyway, this trade was a lot harder to see, but we had all these overlapping bars. We broke lower, prices failed, because you may not have had this trend line in place unless you caught it off this top. And so you know, that's the way I do it a lot of times. I've shown that before in case you haven't seen it. Sometimes if you're having a hard time getting your trend line off the lows, and you might have even had your trend line up here like there, and there was nothing wrong with it if you did, because it still was coming into play. You can see right there. But I think the better spot was here. But a lot of times if you can't find your trend line on the low side, if you're having trouble, then come up here and try to get it off the high side. And if you look right there, you had about 3 touches off of that using the closes there, and then you just clone that and drag it down. You would have seen it would have fit perfect. So and that would have kept you on the right side the rest of the day. And you can see it did turn out to be the channel. So don't forget that trick. And then a second trick to remember for anybody that's new is if you're having a hard time finding a trend, which you would have when you were over in here, that means you're probably in a trading range. And you can see that was pretty much the trading range for the day, right across here. Trying to get my line straight. Was pretty much it at the start of the day, and you can see how that held prices all day long. And when we made this new high and we tried to go higher 2 more times and couldn't, that's remember, anytime the market attempts to do something twice and fails, it's usually a good trade in the other direction. So that made this that also made this a second entry short as well, coming off that top. But we've already talked about that trade. If you didn't take that one, I understand why, because there were quite a few overlapping bars. But generally, if you've got strong resistance or strong support, you're going to get 4 ticks off of that most of the time, and unless you happen to catch the final one that breaks through like that one or like that one. But generally, even then, it'll come back and give you a chance to get out fairly cheaply, or to get out at break even, or maybe lose a tick or two. So, but regardless, this was a second entry long right here. Here's your new high, and on a double top, you can count this as a first entry or a second, or start the count over at 0. It works either way. That's kind of one of my rules, and sometimes people don't catch that. But you could count this as the first entry, or you could count it as 0, either one, because it's a double top. And so if you count that as 0, there's your first entry, and then there's your second entry. And that's a second entry long coming off a double bottom. If you look right there, you had that nice double bottom, and you had all these overlapping bars right there. And here's your one bottom, here's the other, and or you could have even drawn it like that, and it was a double bottom, or even like that, it was still a double bottom. So, and this was probably really the more realistic one, because this was the resistance before down here, and now it's the support from coming back from all the way across over here. And sometimes this stuff is hard to see, but over time, as you look at this, you'll begin to see it. But this is a second entry long. Again, there's your new high, your pullback, your first entry, your pullback, your second entry. So there's a two-legged move back to a strong support area, and a failed break out of this little congestion area. And so there was enough room to scalp out before getting back up here to these highs again, and it was another good trade. And it got kind of dicey right in here, but let me show you again. You got a double bottom right there, and the trend has pretty much been working upwards from right after they opened. We've been kind of trending up, and we broke above the former highs, and we had this 2 legs back. So this is a double bottom at the EMA with all the prices above it. And where are most of the prices since the open? They've all, for the last hour or two, they've been all above the EMA. So most of your bars above the EMA, so the trend is mostly up at this point. But what you're looking for, somebody asked me today, and I tried to give him an answer, you know, because this stuff gets confusing, but the more you watch it, you should be starting to understand it. And sometimes it takes more time, and some people it takes more time than others. But when the market is trending, and what you're looking for is reasons to get on with the trend. And really, even though we're in this trading range, the overall bias has been up from about 840 all the way to 1030. So that's a long time for the bias to be up. So the bias is still up at that point. And let me show you something else here too. This is your first leg up, and then you got this correction in there, and then there's your next leg up, and look where it went to. Basically, that's where it went to, and then corrected off again. So this is a two-legged move with a two-legged move in the middle, and that's what you're always looking for, are two-legged moves, and you're trying to use the second leg as your target. And we easily met that target today, went a couple of ticks further. But anyway, when the trend is up, you're looking for patterns to get on with the trend. And when the trend is down, you're looking for patterns to get on with the downtrend. And because this trend has been up, you're looking for double bottoms, just like that right there, that double bottom, second entry long, two-legged pullbacks to the EMA, things like that. So, you know, with the trend up, double bottom's a good pattern to try to get on and go up. And you see how well that worked right there. Went on up, went all the way to a new high to 1400. And remember I said yesterday that 14, that century mark, we were probably going to test it a bunch of times. And so far we've been testing it. Look across here, there's 1400. We've been testing it on both sides. And that's generally the way prices will do. That century mark is going to, we're going to play around on both sides of that until we finally decide if we're going to go higher or work lower off that resistance area or that support area. But there's one other entry here I marked, and it was really too late in the day. If you saw this one, this is another couple of legs back to the EMA, and so that trade would have been okay too if you saw it. I didn't like all these overlapping bars being after 2 o'clock in the day, so I didn't mark it. But here's a good one. You got one leg back, your first entry long, your second leg back, and a second entry long. And look at that little reversal bar. Prices tried to go lower and close back here on the very high, so going long above that was a good trade. And if you drew your trend line off of these first 2 swings, even if you didn't have it up here and then drug it up, you see, you would have been able to see that we weren't quite yet getting back to these highs, so we were looking for prices to go there, and there's plenty of room between there and the trend line. And that's all a trend line and a trend channel line are support and resistance areas that are at a slant. So this support area is just as good as this support area. You just got to understand that it's at a slant. So every time prices get back to it, we're looking to buy. And look what happened when they came back and tested that line again. Boom. So what you got to learn to do is be patient. What happens is people will sit here and they try to enter in all this mess right here, and they just get stuck and they get stopped out. And a lot of times what happens is they see this bar right here and they go long, and then all of a sudden it reverses and say, oh no, I'm on the wrong side. And then they reverse, and then oops, I'm on the wrong side. And the next thing you know, they've reversed 2 or 3 times and prices haven't done anything. They weren't wrong or right. They're just stuck in these trading ranges. So you got to be careful of that. Don't be eager to enter the market. Only enter at the key entry points that I'm always telling you about. When the market is trending, the key entry points are at the trend line and the EMA during pullbacks. And if it's coming down, just like here, the key entry points are at the trend line. See, there's only 1, 2, 3 of them are the EMA, and there's only 1, 2. So there's only, during that whole overnight, there were only 4 key entries. So they don't come constantly, but there's enough of them during the day that you can make all the money you want. So don't, what I see when people send me their charts and say, hey, what I do wrong, you're not waiting on the key entry points. And you're trying to enter constantly. You're trying to enter too much. You're too eager to enter, and I understand why. I mean, I had to fight this same battle. But just as an example, you see prices shoot up here, and then you watch them shoot up again. You think, look at all that movement. I didn't get any of it. So then you try to go long right here, and what happens then, it doesn't go anywhere, and you just kind of get stuck, and then next thing you know, it's going against you. So just because you see a move going without you, don't get eager to enter. Wait for it to pull back. It's going to pull back, and if it doesn't, then you got a runaway trend. It'll still be obvious because your entries will all be at the EMA, like right in here. And look what would have happened every time prices came back to that EMA. If you just bought it blindly until up here, but then up here it's too late in the day, and we've already bounced off the upper side twice. So what are we expecting? We're expecting prices to come back down here. And then once they come back down here, they're probably going to go back and try to test the high side again, just like they're doing right now. And so just be patient, I guess, is the main thing I can tell you, and try to stay with the trend. And if the market's not trending, which a lot of times, like it was in here or was across here, it wasn't trending real well, then just sell the support or sell the resistance or buy the support. And look what would have happened if you drew these lines across these lows right here. Every time it came down here, except for this one time, if you'd have bought it, you'd have made money. And every time it got up here to these highs, if you'd have sold it, you'd have made money, except for this one time. But by the time it's tested it that many times and it's starting to work through, well, there's your signal that, hey, we're probably going higher, because we're starting to make higher highs and lower lows. And so just watch for your strong support and resistance areas, and they could be flat like these, or they can be angled like these. A trend line, again, make sure you get that, is all a trend line is an angled support or resistance area. And if you draw your lines across them and you work at it in practice, you'll eventually get to where you're very good at spotting the trends, the angled support and resistance lines. So anyway, this thing's 20 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 really good trades, and there were actually more trades than that. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. Look what would have happened once you realize the prices were going higher today. Look what would have happened every time prices pulled back to the EMA. Here, 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 here. We got below it right here. But once we got back above it, here, 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 and even here, you didn't have much room to buy above the bar. But just if you'd have just bought at the EMA every time, look what would have, look at how easy that would have been. And so just be patient, and remember that most of your key entries are going to happen, if it's trending, at the EMA or the trend line. EMA, all the EMA is really is a average trend line, and that's why you see so many reversals there. But remember that if the market is trending, wait for pullbacks. It doesn't matter which way it's trending. If it's trending down, just wait for pullbacks to the trend line. Look at what happened every time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and even that one, 7. If you just sold right at that trend line, or every time it came to the EMA, there's 1, 2, that was pretty close. But there's another one, 3, 4. And this is the only one. But when it gets, once you've had this failed break lower and a nice bullish move, you don't want to be fighting that. So that's your reason to stay out of that one. But anyway, we're over 20 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.